Thank you very much, and I'm absolutely delighted to be joining you this afternoon. And so, as you said, I'm Mike Adams, and I'm Chief Exec of a company called Purple. And I'm probably going to do something slightly different in this session for the next half hour. And as it's been said, our kind of mantra is changing the disability conversation. And traditionally, disability has been seen as an issue of welfare, charity, the responsibility of government, and in what we're talking about today, predominantly subsidized employment. And what we're doing is kind of telling the story about seeing disabled people as talented individuals that happen to have a disability, people with skill sets, people who can make a huge contribution to what you're doing. And what I want to do today is kind of tell that story and talk to you about the untapped disability market and how it could really open up huge opportunities, both I think in terms of employment, but equally in terms of customers as well. And I always talk about there's a symbiotic relationship between the two, and all of us know that the best companies in the world are ones in which, reflected in the workforce, however you define workforce, is their consumer base. And so the argument goes that if you increase your disabled consumers, then there will be a pull rather than a push to increase your disabled workforce. And what I want to do today is give you the level of information and some practical hints and tips that will enable you to go away and to think about how you might be able to tap into this disability market for your own benefits. And what I normally do, if we can move to the next slide, please, but what I normally do is I talk about the disability equation. And you will see in front, we talk about disability statistics and business statistics. And let me just not do all of these numbers, but just some of them for you. In the UK, 22% of the population will have rights under disability legislation. And it's probably really interesting that when you think disability, you will all know the international sign for disability is the wheelchair. And wherever you go in the world, it's instantly recognizable. But actually, wheelchair users reflect 8% of the disabled population. So when we're talking today, we need to be thinking about individuals with mental health, individuals who are on the neurodiverse spectrum, individuals who have dyslexia, individuals who have sensory impairments, and interestingly, individuals, particularly in the UK and probably elsewhere as well, where individuals have cancer or are fully recovered from cancer. So disabled people are the largest minority group in the world. And a couple of other statistics for you. 80% of disabled people will have hidden disabilities. So they could walk into your business, they could walk into a shop, they could walk into a restaurant, and you would not necessarily know that they have a disability. Whereas if I walk into your shop, within a second, you will know. But 80% wouldn't. Another statistic for you is 83% of disabled people will acquire their disability in their lifetime. So I'm Mike, I'm also known as the 17%er because I was born with my disability. but 83% will acquire their disability. And so we have to reorientate our thinking about our understanding of this market and who we are talking about in order to see it as an opportunity. And within this market, the gap between those who are disabled and non-disabled in terms of employment is 30%. So once you understand this market, there is a huge talent pool waiting to be employed on whatever basis that is, including freelancing. That is an absolute talent waiting for you. And in terms of the business statistics, the purple pound, the consumer spending power of disabled people and their families, is £274 billion a year. Recently, the global figure is $10 trillion. So it has gone up significantly. And within that, only 10% of businesses have any kind of strategy to access this market. So today, if you go away and you think, well, hang on a minute, this is a huge opportunity, you probably could have a significant competitive advantage because only 10% of businesses are even thinking about this. And the number's about 75%. 75% of disabled people have walked out of a restaurant or a shop or come off a website due to poor access or poor customer service. So you get your customer service, you get your access right, and disabled people are the most loyal individuals and customers you've got. And that 17.1 billion relates to disabled people who have left the website before purchasing a product or service, simply due to the fact that they have come off because of poor service. So it's a huge lost opportunity for businesses. I'm just going to correct myself again, because the figure for global purchasing dollar is 13 trillion, not 10 trillion, as I said. So it's a significant number. If we move to the next slide, please. I want to talk ever so slightly about the world's greatest reasonable adjustment. And that is COVID, where most of us in lockdown overnight went from, and certainly for me, working 5 days, 6 days a week in the office to working from home. And what I have said to people is never ever can we say that it is not right, health and safety, it's not reasonable to employ a disabled person, because it is just shown the extent to which we can adapt working practices to accommodate talented individuals. And so we have got in the UK 14.1 million disabled people who are hugely talented, have lived experience, have insight. Many individuals will have carers and personal assistants who they employ. So they've got managerial experience. They have got innovative skills, creative skills, waiting to be employed by that 10% and growing number who recognise who they are. And this is the opportunity. And as I've said, what we know is in terms of brand loyalty, disabled people are the highest. So once you connect with disabled customers, they are with you longer than any other group out there. So it's really, really important. And in this day and age, actually, post COVID and lockdowns, if we're talking about ESG and talking about social impact, this is also about delivering on your brand. Because I can absolutely tell you, in all the work that we've done, staff are now expecting to see the companies and the brands that they work for deliver on social impact. No longer is it just acceptable to do a tick box exercise. And just to give you a very quick example, we worked with a huge corporate who in lockdowns did Thank Goodness It's Fridays, where the chief exec stood up virtually and talked to all their staff. And he talked about why voice and why disability was so important, and it was predominantly about mental health. And then at the end, ask questions, and there was this kind of silence, as there normally is when you get asked questions on Zoom or Teams. And then someone came off and said, I just want to let everyone know I've got a mental health condition. I've had it for 15 years. I've never told anyone in this organisation, but today is the day that I feel I'm able to, because we're talking about it. Within 10 minutes, that chief executive had 9 new members of staff who, for the first time, had disclosed they had a disability, because they felt the culture and the environment was a supportive one. And suddenly it changed the dynamics of that organisation. So it really, really is an important issue. And I thought, just because it is a Wednesday afternoon, and sometimes it's nice to go away with some practical things, I thought I'd focus just on a couple of things around how you reach into this disability market. How do you communicate? And I'm going to use the examples really of websites, which are increasingly becoming the gateway and the connection with individuals. And I just want to say a little bit about social media before talking about something that you can absolutely engage with. So if we go to the next slide, please. Top 10 tips for creating accessible content. And this applies very, very much in the freelancing world. That if you want to garner, if you want to attract freelancers who happen to have a disability, they've got to be able to connect with you. They've got to be able to access the information. And quite frankly, if you are going to be accessible, then you need to mirror that as well. So very quickly, in terms of your website and top 10 tips, think about alternatives. Think about text for images. So when you show a picture, describe that picture. Because if you're blind, you need that painting told. You need that story being told. For people whose written language is poor, again, hearing it visually and being able to see it as well is so important. And quite frankly, a lot of us are increasingly, we connect visually rather than paragraphs and paragraphs of words. And so actually you can just give more insight and more knowledge to actually describing a visual. And certainly in my world, in social media and LinkedIn, the visual that I show is probably more important as people scroll down their kind of list about what attracts people to then read the information. And think about closed captioning as well. This should now be your default position. And we did a virtual 12-hour conference last week of 7 sessions, and we have put them out on YouTube yesterday or the day before, all of them with closed captioning. And it is the way that the modern people access their information. And increasingly, if you are in a shared office or if you're on public transport watching these from your phone, you will absolutely need closed captioning. So something that was created for the deaf community has much more applicability in today's modern world. What I will tell you is what's really important is that you integrate and make your website inclusive rather than have something totally separate. And I'm really excited because we are creating a marketplace called Enable All that will come out in the next 2 or 3 weeks, which is going to be a brilliant marketplace, which happens to be fully accessible. So look out for that. Navigation, I always talk about the no mouse test. So please don't do it now, but later after this conference, go on the website of your home website or any website and unplug your mouse and see the extent to which you can navigate that website. And that will give you an initial indication about how accessible your website may or may not be. The really, really good news is your web developers and people can make significant changes to your website overnight and at no cost. And one thing I'll tell you is you need a sitemap. And I'll give you two examples. One is many websites, the pages, first page always has the first sentence in caps, stylistic thing. But if you're blind and you have a screen reader, caps are read as acronyms. So welcome to would be WELCOME. And actually for blind people, by the time they work out whose website they're on, they've gone. So, and that is a thing that web developers can change in 3 seconds. And also, it is great to navigate through colors. So there's 3 million people who are colorblind in the UK alone. And if you only navigate through colors, then those 3 million people will get lost. Keep the colors, but have words next to them as well. And suddenly your whole website becomes much more accessible. I know it sounds daft, but structure, headings, short sentences, flow, it's just much easier to do. Error prevention, just tell people how many forms have you filled in and then submitted and it's come back because there were mandatory boxes that you weren't sure whether you had to complete or not. So just be really, really open and honest. And just remember the average reading age for people in the UK, and I can only talk about people in the UK, is 9. So write what you write, knowing that it can be understood by a 9-year-old. And I'm very lucky because I have a 9-year-old at the moment. So I make sure everything I write, he understands, and then I know it'll be fine. So find yourself a 9-year-old is what I would say. Visual presentations, think about sans serif font, think about 12 point, and think about ensuring real color contrast. Language and readability, just avoid jargon. I think I'm doing okay today, but I often slip into a world of jargon and stuff, but just try to avoid it. Be predictable, which is important. Movement. People like movement on websites, that's fine, but just kind of limit it. And make sure for people with mental health, for example, what we're finding is declutter your web page. The more you declutter, the less on it, the more people with mental health will be attracted to your website. So there's really subtle things you can do and take off the kind of give people the option to take off Flash, for example. Just make sure it is interactive as well. So I hope that is useful in terms of websites. And just in terms, next slide, please, in terms of social media, because most of us are now connect and with social media. And my last slide will be my own LinkedIn page where I post twice a week. So hopefully I practice what I preach. But in terms of copy, stick to 25 words maximum, short, punchy sentences, use line breaks. Yes, use emojis, they are really useful, but just limit them to 2 or 3 a post and make sure you don't do the same emoji twice, because someone who's got a screen reader, they will have to describe it twice. And just think about that as well. Hashtags, people may know the camel hump method. So Purple Tuesday will be a capital P and a capital T. Make links more accessible, use the full link and don't try to shorten it. And don't put too many links in. Again, close captions. And we talk about the 20 decibel test between music, background music, and voiceover as well. And again, describe visuals. So that's the kind of theory. And if we move to the next slide, just in terms of what's coming up, Purple Tuesday, which is the 1st of November, which is it's an initiative about improving the disabled customer experience, but it works for employees as well, and it works for freelancers. And it is about getting organizations to commit to accessible changes that really changes the dynamic and improves the relationship between the organization and the customer and or the employee, both existing and potential. And it's about organizations making at least one commitment to change practice that they haven't previously done, but that practice has to translate 365 days a year and not just something that happens once a year. The brilliant news for all of you is that Purple Tuesday is free to anyone, and you can register today. It will take you less than 5 minutes, and it tells the story of your organization and your start of the journey or midway on the journey around this disability market and why these individuals are so important. And we're less than 2 weeks away now from Purple Tuesday. And on Purple Tuesday itself, it's a global initiative now. So we only started 5 years. This year it's a global initiative, and we're creating what we call a set of wow moments. So the picture you can see is of Piccadilly lights from a couple of years ago. We light up Piccadilly in London, and it's that gets us number 3, number 2, and hopefully number 1 worldwide on Twitter this year. Last year we had 19 million impressions in one day. We're going to light up Canary Wharf as well in the evening, the business district, to show that disability is both a business and social issue. In America, we're going on a road trip, one of my colleagues, across the state of Minnesota. And those of you who know America and know your music, Minneapolis is in Minnesota and was the home of the artist formerly known as Prince. And we will be in his house, in his recording studio, with a young deaf choir who will be doing a sign language version of Purple Rain, which we think will be a wow moment and will raise the profile and understanding. We are lighting up Karachi in Pakistan. We have got a procession through the streets of Kuala Lumpur down in Malaysia, and we will be lighting up Dubai in the United Arab Emirates, all of which is about this message of raising awareness, understanding, involvement, and engagement in this disability market that is becoming an increasingly important issue for individuals, for teams, and I think for countries, and I think for the world. And I'm just going to leave you with my contact details if you want to know any more.